In today's video, we have lots of NHL news and rumors to take a look at. In the rumor mill tonight, we're looking at teams like Montreal, Edmonton, Vancouver. Plus, we have reports on Val Nichushkin and his potential return. Will he go back to Colorado? How will things be handled? Plus, we have some rumors around the future of Max Pacioretty. We have a signing in St. Louis. Further update and commentary on the Yaroslav Askarov trade to the San Jose Sharks. Plus, we have updates from the American Hockey League mandating cut-resistant neck protection. All that and more coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to talk about here today. Let's start by kicking things off. Following up a little bit more on the trade we saw earlier today. Of course, the news cycle continues to be busy here in the month of August, which is quite pleasantly surprising, we'll say, as I've said numerous times here on the channel. Usually middle of August to late August is usually a pretty slow time. I mean, there might be lots of speculation of what things might, teams might look to do at training camp or when the season starts, but you don't usually get a lot of actual, completed transactions. But we've had a lot of them, and the offer sheets from the Blues have kind of been a big part of that and kind of had a spin-off effect from it from there. So we'd certainly like to acknowledge all the general managers from taking part in the festivities. But, of course, we saw Askarov, the Russian goaltender in Nashville, be moved to the San Jose Sharks earlier. We knew he wanted a trade. We knew he wanted a chance at the NHL, that he felt he had earned it. We learned a few things. We learned what other teams were in on the mix there. We learned that he has since signed a contract extension with San Jose, and we've heard some comments from Barry Trotz on at least part of the reason why they were not keen on bringing him to the NHL this year. So essentially, to kind of summarize everything, just in case you missed the deal or the other video, I'm not going to get into too much on the analysis side of the trade itself, but the deal was Askarov, along with a third-round pick and a prospect, going to the San Jose Sharks in exchange for a 2025 conditional first-round pick, forward prospect David Enstrom, and goalie prospect Magnus Krona. I thought that was a pretty good deal for both sides. Essentially, the Sharks took the two pieces of assets they got from Vegas and the Tomas Hertl trade, and they flipped it to Nashville for Askarov. Obviously, a few other pieces involved, including a decent prospect goalie in Krona. I think Nashville may very well like him in a few years. I think he's going to need a little bit more time, but in all honesty, pretty good deal. I think Barry Trotz did pretty well for a good haul on Askarov, and I think the Sharks did really well to acquire him. And like I said, essentially they took Hertl, they moved him to Vegas, took those assets, sent it off to Nashville for Askarov, who could, if he turns out to be their goalie of the future, and turns out to be the goalie that a lot of people think he can be, it's going to be a phenomenal trade. But like I said, we've learned some more since then. For starters, the San Jose Sharks have extended his contract. Of course, he's still on his ELC for now, but he's got a 2-year extension now with the Sharks. So they've extended him 2 years, $2 million per year. That's pretty good value, especially if he turns out to be the starting goaltender. Now, this year, he may not be the starter at the beginning of the year. He's going to have to compete with Mackenzie Blackwood and Vitek Vanacek. But in all honesty, if you're Askarov and you're looking at UC Saros and Scott Wedgwood in front of you, or you're looking at Blackwood and Vanacek, you're like, yeah, okay, I can at least outplay probably one of those guys and get to the NHL. I mean, GM Mike Greer did say that there was a possibility that he may have to spend a little time in the American Hockey League this year, and that he doesn't expect that to be a problem. And the reason for that, I think, would be that he can see a short-term path where even if he does go down, that he will get that chance. They're not going to have Blackwood and Vanacek for too long. One of those guys will definitely be gone in the short term. So I don't think he'd be too worried about it, whereas when you have two other goalies in Nashville ahead of you with a lot more term in their contract, especially where the backup there, Wedgwood, was just signed, it makes you not feel like you really appreciate it. So there's that. So 2 years at $2 million could be a phenomenal couple of years contract-wise. So then you got from there, one of the comments from Barry Trotz was one of the reasons they kind of soured on him a little bit was his on-ice antics. Now, we know Askarov, it's fair to say he's a goalie with personality. You could probably draw a little bit of comparison to Kochetkov in Carolina. He's had some celebrations, for example, that have kind of ticked a few people off. You know what? And I honestly don't take issue with it. I really don't. You can celebrate however you want. The game sometimes needs villains, too. It can be more fun that way. So, I haven't really seen anything that was like, really blatantly too disrespectful or anything like that. Obviously, you don't want people getting under the opponent's skin if they're unnecessarily, but, at the same time, he's expressing himself. So that's part of the reason why Nashville soured on him. We can say that. Secondly, we also learned from Elliotte Friedman that Montreal and New Jersey were two of the other teams that were very much in the mix over the past week. We don't know exactly what the offers were, but very interesting nonetheless. And we're going to talk about Montreal a little bit further. This just gives us further proof that I don't think Ken Hughes is done. But in New Jersey, they just acquired Markstrom and Allen. They have Nico Dawes there. I wonder what the return offer was. I don't know, but I know Jake Allen's only under contract for one more year. He still would have had to compete with Dawes at that point, but I don't know. I'm not sure if he would have been happy or just as happy there or not. New Jersey, though, obviously has a pretty good young group there, so interesting nonetheless. And of course, Montreal has Montembeault and Primo. They've got Jacob Fowler on the way. Fowler looks to be, a real serious candidate to be an NHL goalie, and a real good one at that. It's early yet, so we'll see. But, it's not like they're lacking young goalies that have potential, right? So, kind of interesting. But if they feel like they have an opportunity to upgrade, then you're going to be aggressive and go after it. So we've also learned a bit about that. So obviously another trade request, another trade scenario that's been fulfilled, and Askarov goes off to San Jose. Like I said, obviously he's quite happy to go there and get the extension done as well. So pretty good piece of business, I think, for both sides so far. Some other news around the NHL. We got the St. Louis Blues today. They've signed a prospect. They've signed Quentin Burns to his 3-year entry-level contract. He was a third-round pick in 2023, currently playing defense for the OHL's Kingston Frontenac. So he's obviously had some pretty good progress in his development since being drafted, and the Blues were quite content to get that ELC on the books. Now, as I mentioned as well, the American Hockey League has approved now for the upcoming 24-25 season, they're going to have mandatory cut-resistant neck protection. So neck guards are not going to be optional anymore, not even going to be recommended. They're going to be mandatory. Of course, we saw the fatal accident over, or was it in England? I think it was Adam Johnson that had a freak accident with and lost his life. I think players all over, I think, have learned from that you really shouldn't be taking the risk. At the lower levels, at the youth level, you grow up wearing the neck guards, and then you get to the higher levels and you take it off. It just seems weird. But we saw a number of players slowly start to use them again. But like I said, until it's mandatory, you're not going to see a high level of participation. Obviously, if it's mandatory, they're all going to do it. So I wonder how quickly we're going to see the NHL follow suit. Is there any chance they'll come forth with that for the upcoming year? I'm going to say I haven't heard anything, so I'd be pleasantly surprised if they did. But I'd like to see it happen just to make sure that we don't have any freak accidents. It shouldn't take somebody dying to enforce a rule like that. So, I don't know. At the very least, maybe the year after, I don't know. I'll be curious to see. I think that the NHL at this point has a stance that they would, recommend it, but it's not mandatory yet. So we'll see if they follow suit. According to NHL insider Frank Saravalli, he's reporting that longtime NHL veteran Max Pacioretty has firm offers from at least 3 different teams, and he's kind of mulling things over and deciding what to do, and should make a decision here soon. But obviously, Pacioretty, to me, last year in Washington just didn't seem to be the same player anymore. He's missed a lot of time. He's been through a lot with back-to-back Achilles injuries. Definitely lost a step, and definitely, not only age, but the injuries are catching up to him. So I don't know what the offer is going to be. I would suspect it's going to be at most a 1-year deal. Maybe it's a league minimum. Maybe it's I don't know. It's not going to be much. I can't imagine, right? So who would be signing Pacioretty? He may have to go to a team that has more space, and maybe hope to have a good year and get traded at the deadline to a contender if his goal is to chase the Stanley Cup. But Pacioretty apparently has offers, according to Saravalli, and we will see where that takes him. We should have an announcement soon enough, but don't know exactly when. Update out of Russia on Valery Nichushkin, of course, of the Avalanche, who's currently suspended and in the Stage 3, I believe it's called, of the Player Assistance Program. A couple of things we learned on this interview report out of the Russian news outlet. One, it indicates that it's very much expected that when his suspension it's because it's a unique scenario. It's not like your suspension just ends. At the 6-month mark, he has to reapply to be reinstated. So they indicate that he's going to do that as soon as he's eligible, and that he wants to and intends to return to the Avalanche in November and get back to playing. In the meantime, he's going to be doing everything he needs to do training-wise, and everything to be ready so that when he's able to play, he can hopefully step in and, and be ready to go, which is good news. The report also goes on to say that if the Avalanche tried to trade him after he comes back, because they can't do anything now, but once he's out of that program and he's back in good standing with the league and able to play, they could try to trade him at that point. I don't think they can buy his contract out or anything. I don't think we'll see a unconditional waivers type of scenario. I don't think that would fly. But if they try to trade him, he does have a no-move clause, and he will block any trades. He wants to stay with the Avalanche. And to be honest, if they feel like, if he can integrate himself back into that group and they can rely on him and trust him again, he was a great fit there, and he's had success in the Colorado Avalanche organization that he has not had anywhere else, and I think it's a great spot for him, but I can understand from the teammates' perspectives after numerous incidents why it might be challenging for them to buy into the fact that he's here, he's not going anywhere, he's back, he's dealt with his issues and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see. One thing that the report also refuted, because it was this is one of his close friends talking to, saying that this has nothing to do with alcohol at all. There was apparently some rumors that he was having issues with alcohol. That's not the case, apparently. It says that everything stemmed from having sleep issues and the medication that he was taking for that led to other issues. So that's kind of where things started. So we will see. I mean, we've heard reports from Nichushkin himself talking too about some of the things that he was doing an interview with a different news outlet earlier in the offseason, kind of talking about the whole incident when he had to, like in Seattle when he was with the team, and then he had somebody in his room that was they had to call the ambulance for and all that, and he just got swept away and off he went. There was definitely forms of drugs and alcohol in that scenario, but it could be a case where taking legit medication for an actual medical condition could have led to other substance abuse issues. I mean, we've seen that all the time. It's way too common. So anyways, the moral of the story is that he fully intends to return to the Avalanche to get reinstated, to play. If they try to move him, he doesn't want that. He'll block it and wants to stay with the team. And they're trying to get, the news out that it's not as bad as it sounds, and he's going to be training and ready to go, and to kind of dispel some of the rumors out there about what the issues were. But I don't know. It's hard to say how reliable that part of the report can be. The main thing is we hope he's doing well, and if he wants to stay in Colorado and get reinstated and all that, then I think that's great, and I hope that he can get back and help the team, because he's been a huge part of their success in the past. Now onto the rumors section of the video. So we want to look at Montreal, Vancouver, Edmonton. With Montreal, it's just going to start there. Nothing too concrete, but essentially the feeling that I get, and I've seen some Montreal media members suggest it without going into much detail, is that Ken Hughes is not done here. The Patrik Laine trade was a huge deal, and a lot of people thought, okay, because we've been waiting all summer for the big trade that never happened at the draft, the top younger-ish player that they're going to go after. Okay, it happened. They got Patrik Laine, okay? That's great. So their depth on the wings is through the roof now, especially with younger emerging talent, but they also have a lot of older talent on the wings that needs to be cleared out. And of course, we also learned today, like I said, that they were in on the Askarov trade. The belief was, now I don't know, I can't back this up, and the quote, a good Maritimer and former NHL general manager and broadcaster Doug McLean, not going to tell you what's true, I'm just going to tell you what I heard. And I did see speculation that the asking price on Askarov for the Canadiens was Owen Beck, and they didn't want to go there. So we'll see who they decide to move for future assets down the road here. They do have a ton of prospects. They have one of the deepest prospects pools in the NHL, and they can't all be Canadians, and they still have an abundance of D after moving Jordan Harris in the Line A deal. But if you look at their lineup, obviously, you've got Caulfield, you've got Slavkovsky, right? You've got Newhook and Doc, and then you got Ivan Demidov coming. Like, the top six as far as their forwards, especially on the wings, there's a lot there, and we don't know 100%. I don't know that it's fair to say 100% that Kirby Dach is going to be a centerman in the NHL long term. It's possible he may turn out to be a winger too. And if he's better on the wing, then their center depth is going to be tested, and that might be the next area that they need to focus on, is bringing in another centerman to play behind Nick Suzuki. I think Dach will probably, if they don't do that, Dach will get that opportunity and to be that number 2 center, and maybe he is a solution there. I just know that. I know he's missed a lot of time in the past year, but a lot of people weren't quite sold yet that he's still an NHL centerman, that he might be better on the wing. So we'll see about that. But if you look at, if you look at their projected lineup for the coming year, which doesn't even have Demidov on it, you throw him in the mix, and then of course, all these veterans that are still there longer, with some term. Armia's a name that comes to mind. He's finally down to his final year. Like, he's going to end up, if he makes the roster, he's going to play on the 4th line, probably. Then you've got Josh Anderson, Brendan Gallagher. I know they're probably not going to move both those guys, but in the Gallagher, well, they're both contracts that would be very hard to move. So that part would be pretty tough. But, you got Dvorak as well. These guys are all going to be bottom 6 players. And it just doesn't make sense to have that kind of money and term invested to all those veterans for bottom 6 guys. So, I wouldn't be shocked if we've seen at least one of them move before the start of the season. And the fact that Hughes was in on the Askarov conversations tells us that they're still not, maybe completely sold on the long-term outlook of goaltending. I think they're content to stick with it, with what they have. But if they have an opportunity to upgrade, I'm not sure there's going to be any more goaltending, youngsters like Askarov that are going to be popping up on the available market here. And I think they're quite happy with what they've seen from Fowler so far. But you got to remember, he's still years, a little ways away. And, goalies take a while. They're a unique beast. And at the same time, if you had somebody else who can come in right now and improve that goalie tandem, and then you still got him coming, it's a good problem to have if you have great depth, right? So, I just fair to say that Hughes is still looking at everything, and I would think that the main areas he's looking at would be maybe goaltending, although that's probably to the wayside now. I think it's going to be more along the lines of creating a little bit more flexibility and roster spot flexibility in cap with at least one veteran winger going out. And if they do bring anybody in, I would suggest that they're probably going to be targeting a center. Especially after losing Monahan. They have some good young centermen that are coming up in the system, whether it be Owen Beck, who may have a shot this year, Michael Hage, who's going to be a couple years away, has some real possibilities down the road as well. But not to say that they couldn't, after losing Monahan, that might be better. If they really want to make improvements this year, that might be an area for them to focus on. So we'll see. In Vancouver, there's more talk on the goaltending. Rick Dhaliwal today was talking further about Thatcher Demko, now saying that, it seems unlikely that he's going to be able to do much of anything in camp or play in preseason games, which, he said if that's the case, he's got a hard time believing he's going to be ready to start the season. It's like, well, that's what I've said earlier this week. Is like, if the news isn't good on Demko and he's not ready, I just can't imagine if you miss training camp that you're going to be there on day 1 of the season. So to me, they're better off to take their time and make sure they get it healed right and that he's good, rather than rush him and have a re-aggravation. So in all honesty, we know they're in the goalie market. It may not necessarily come via trade. We heard on the UFA rumor side that they're seriously looking at Kevin Lankinen.
I wonder with San Jose getting Askarov now, would they look at like Vanacek? I'm not sure. They're not going to want anything that's going to cost them a lot, and they're not going to want anything that comes with any kind of big commitment, because I think, longer term here, they're still content with Demko and Shilovs. They just need some insurance on a short-term basis. So, it's somebody that they're going to have to be comfortable maybe losing on waivers down the road here. Or, can they figure out a way with their cap to carry 3 is going to be challenging. So I'm not sure what they do, but it's looking a little bit more bleak now than it was earlier in the week on Demko being ready to start the season. So you definitely look for the Canucks to be trying to enhance their goaltending depth, either via trade or free agency in the coming days before we get too further along closer to the training camp. And in Edmonton, we've heard, of course, the speculation about the defense. Well, there's some more names popping up now. Of course, right shot defenseman after moving Cody Ceci. I think the whole goal here is not that they really wanted to diminish the right side of their defense, but they're just trying to find a way to do it more, a little bit more economically, you could say. So Tyson Barrie, a former Oiler, is in the mix reportedly. I heard Justin Schultz's name, Kevin Shattenkirk. They're all very comparable. Schultz, of course, is former Oiler too. In the trade market, of course, we talked before some other guys that former Oilers that they may look to as well. Adam Larson's name has been out there in Seattle. Jeff Petrie. We talked about David Savard yesterday. They're all names, and a lot of these guys are former Oilers. They're right shot guys that can move the puck. Outside of Savard, who's a little bit more unique in the defensive aspect of his game, the other guys are all a little bit more one-dimensional, and they'd be there more for third pair minutes, second power play, just skate and move the puck and try to create some offense with their strong forwards. So, hard to say. But GM Stan Bowman also did confirm that Evander Kane is not healthy, and didn't go into a lot. He couldn't confirm 100% if he was having surgery or what kind of timelines or anything of that nature. But it did sound, based on his comments, that surgery is going to be taking place. Just kind of narrowing down the exact details of that. But he did confirm he's not healthy. So he is expected to start the year on long-term injury reserve. He acknowledged that they may or may not have him on LTIR. Really boils down to their full cap situation, if they need it or not. But of course, they need to have the space available to bring him back, because at some point he is expected to play later in the year once he's healed up. So we'll see what happens. But Edmonton definitely doesn't appear to be done. Vancouver and Montreal all busy. Lots of other stuff going on around the league as well. In Toronto, mentioned quickly, Nick Robertson is still a player that's unsigned, and we know that he wants a trade as well. We've seen players that have been wanting for trades, have been getting their ways here in the past few days. Maybe Nick Robertson is next. Like I said before, we've heard about Robertson. We've heard about Liljegren maybe being available too. And with the possibility, now the Liljegren scenario, they may want to wait until camp, because the belief is that Topi Niemela might be the cheaper option to replace Liljegren on the roster. Honestly, in the ELC, can knock it down from $3 million to under $1 million. He can save a couple $1 million in cap space there if Niemela is ready to take that spot. And you know what? If Robertson's situation drags into camp and they have a look at him and they're content, that I wouldn't be shocked to see them maybe even packaged together. Have Robertson and Liljegren go for, maybe they find a way to upgrade the forward group, because they're still looking at the forwards there. It's not a given, because it was that everybody's set in stone, right? So I do think there's also a little bit of uncertainty about Kampf or Yarncroke, or to some degree Reeves. I don't know. I think Reeves would be tougher to move, and he's really not making that much in retrospect. I think they'd be better served if they find a way to upgrade like the bottom six of the forward group. Kampf to me is the more ideal guy, but at the same time, you get to ask yourself, if he goes, then who's going to be your fourth line center? Kampf at times has been the third center. He's at times been the fourth center. So it's difficult to say, right? But they're definitely, I don't think, completely done either, looking at all things. And with the Robertson situation kind of looming, I wouldn't be shocked to see him get packaged up and possibly move too. But we'll see. Lots of things still happening. It's been, like I said, a busy middle part of August. I expect that has potential, at least, to continue as we kind of get towards the end of the month into September, when we're not that far from training camp now. So we're bound to see more activity too as teams prepare to get ready to start their year. So let me know your thoughts on all today's news and rumors in the comments. We'll talk about it further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.